What's up? What's up? What is happening, podcast listeners? This is the Practice Squad podcast. I'm Angelo, joined by Storm. We got James behind the camera and computer, working as producer. And if I don't sound quite as enthusiastic to start the show today, as you can guess, it is for good reason. I know it's been a few days, but this is the first time Storm and I have been on the mic since the tragic helicopter crash involving Kobe Bryant and 8 others in Calabasas. And before we get started, I'd just like to, on behalf of the entire show, express the condolences of myself, Storm, and James to both the Bryant family as well as all the families and loved ones involved. Just in memoriam, the 9 people who were lost were Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, John, Carrie, and Alyssa Albatelli, Sarah and Peyton Chester, Christina Mauser, and Ara Zobayan, the pilot. So once again, just an absolutely devastating event. And I know it came as a shock to so many people in the sports world, as well as sports fans and even people who didn't really follow sports at all. So I'm going to take a minute and just ask you, Storm, how you reacted, because you were the one who informed me of the news, and I didn't believe you. But what was your?
I didn't believe myself.
Yeah, it was a difficult thing to come to terms with, and we'll get into that. But I just want to know what your initial reactions were to hearing the news.
Denial, same thing. Shock. Like, you don't think of TMZ as the best news source outlet, and then you see it, and I was actually getting ready to study, and my phone just started blowing up, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'll check my phone. And I click the link. I'm like, there's just no way. Like, it's impossible. And you're like, then, like you said, you just see it coming out more and more and more. And then there was rumors that TMZ was hacked, but other people kept reporting it. And you're like, this is real. And it's just like, all of a sudden, it's like, you just think of everything that he's done. And then you think of, like, him and Shaq, him and Paul, him and MSG, him, even as a Philly fan, him telling Philly fans in the 0-1 finals that I'm going to rip your throats out. You just think of all the good memories that you had of, like, watching him. And I know, like, just so many people were just able to connect to him on so many different levels. And, I mean, we'll talk about it, but it was felt around the world. It wasn't just here in the States.
No, and it's really strange because I typically don't get really upset or that emotionally torn up when I see a celebrity death, even if I was a fan of them, fan of their work. But there was something really close to a lot of people about Kobe Bryant. And just speaking as a person, a 25-year-old sports fan, obviously I've had limited experiences with superstar athletes, but Kobe was one of the first athletes I remember just drawing me to a television. Him and Shaq with the Lakers were that first team that's like, wow, this is what sports can be, exciting and flashy. And in some weird way, you could say it was an indirect part of my life and many people's lives as sports fans. But you mentioned it's not just people in the States, it's people around the world, because Kobe created, it wasn't just him as an athlete, it was him as a person and him as a mentality. The passion that he poured into his craft, the amount of time and effort that he dedicated knowing that he needed to put the work into it. It resonated with so many people. And we all got to watch him go from a 19-year-old kid coming out of high school.
He was younger than he was 17. He scored his first points when he was 18 years and like 22 days or something crazy like that on a couple free throws.
Yeah, it's
Lower Marion, man. And like, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know. It's just, you didn't think it could happen to somebody like Kobe. Like, obviously,
thought he was invincible.
A freak accident can happen to anyone at any time, but there was something about him that seemed larger than life and death. Honestly, he was Kobe Bryant. He was the Mamba. And you felt like that mentality kind of protected him from things that other people are vulnerable to. And to see that he himself was just as vulnerable as us, it kind of reminds you of your own mortality. Like, if it can happen to Kobe Bryant, shit, like...
Yeah, everyone, like I'm pretty sure...
My chances are like 40 times that.
Yeah. You know, I'm pretty sure everybody just, as soon as they saw it, they just instantly probably like wanted to hold somebody or tell someone that you love them. And I know even when you look to Twitter, like Kendrick Perkins like apologized to Kevin Durant for the beef, you know, right afterwards, saying like, "Hey, I don't know how we got here, but I'm sorry. I hope we can figure this out." And you know, even like someone like Shaq, who, you know,
you watched his reaction on TNT.
And I knew they kind of puzzled that relationship back together, pieced it back together, but I had no idea they haven't talked since his last game. But it's just incredible. And like, as good as a player that Kobe was, like on the court, post-retirement, he was just as successful. I mean, this man
that's what's such a shame, man.
He made more money post-career than he did all 20 years in the NBA.
And it wasn't even about money for him. You could tell that it was about just being really, really fucking good at something. Yeah, great. Really great at something. And he seemed like he had a really intricate mind where, like, yeah, he was an athlete, and people kind of generalize athletes in one block and assume that they all have similar personalities. But you could tell he was the type of guy that had so many other interests, so many other things that he wanted to achieve and do, whether it was exploring his creative side with his children's books and his Oscar-winning short, whether it was just devoting himself into fatherhood. Like, you could see the happiness that he found in being a devoted and present father to his children after having to spend so many years away. And it seemed like he was just like entering that second act, and it was going to be a great one for him. And I don't mean to get too personal, but I'm sure it hit home a little bit for you as well as a father.
Yeah, it definitely did. And like I said, just want to hold them quick, really tight when you hear it, especially like that's like social media is just a joke anymore with the way things are handled. And when you saw like all the reports coming out, whatever it was, you know, you're like, you just feel bad. It was such a roller coaster of emotions, and then you hear like the final word with his daughter being on there too. And it's not just him; it's, you know, the other families that you mentioned as well. Basically, 4 or 5 families were affected, all in all. It's just, it's gut wrenching, and like, you talk about him like just trying to absorb as much information as he did. You know, him coaching the Mamba Academy. He apparently like called Gino Auriemma not too long ago, and he's like picking his brain about a defensive scheme that he uses at UConn because he's trying to bring it to girls. He's trying to figure out a way to relate to girls on how to play defense. This is coming from, what was he, a nine-time first-team All-NBA defensive guy?
Yeah, I think second most in NBA
and he's
history.
Over there asking Gino Auriemma for how to coach defense. Like, the guy just never stopped, and
he never wanted to stop becoming a better basketball mind, a better athlete, or a better human being. And I think that's one of the main reasons why he resonates so much with people, is because Kobe was never this like dominant athlete, especially when he came into the NBA. He wasn't Lou Alcindor or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He wasn't Shaq. He wasn't LeBron. He wasn't this physical specimen. But he came in and he worked harder than everyone else and achieved basically the pinnacle of 5 titles, like you said, 9-time NBA All-Defense. What was it, 18 All-Stars?
18 All-Stars, 1 MVP, 3 MVP finals.
I think
Finals MVP.
2 Finals MVPs, I believe, because I think Shaq won 3. But nonetheless, he showed us all that like hard work can pay off, and it's something that even with an athlete who's a multimillionaire, like I said, it just connects with other people in a way that other star athletes can't quite do all the time.
I don't know, was that AI put something on Twitter or Instagram, and it just goes to show to his work ethic. Like, they both got drafted in 96, I think it was, or 90, whatever draft class they were.
Yeah,
I think they were in the same draft class. But AI was out in LA. They were, you know, coming out in the regular season, and him and Kobe went out to lunch or dinner. And, you know, Kobe went to drop AI off at the hotel, and Kobe's like, "What are you doing after this?" And AI's like, "I'm going to the club, you know, I'm in LA." And Kobe's like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to the gym." This is like after dinner, you know, and it just like, AI's like, damn. And, you know, of all people, the Lakers beat him in 0-1, and what was AI doing in one of his last couple games when he was watching Kobe? He had a shirt of Kobe celebrating that championship that he beat him in. That's the respect that Kobe garnered from players like that. It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's wild when you say something like other star players. Like I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and enjoy your life and your money and whatnot, but it showed that just the pure dedication. Like he was some people are willing to say that, I'll sacrifice everything to get what I want, but Kobe actually showed the dedication to doing that. Unlike almost any superstar player ever, Jordan was not like that. Magic was not like that. Kareem maybe was the one other player, but he kind of focused on other things beyond basketball while he was a player, while it seemed like Kobe was just hyper-focused in on playing. And in regards to his playing, it was just amazing watching this guy, because I know Colin Cowherd has referred to him as the painter of basketball. And I kind of thought of him kind of like a jazz musician out there, taking things as they come. He was one of the most impressive, difficult shot makers we've ever seen. He made the game of basketball seem so sexy and cool, and like it was effortless for him.
That's why we always tried to mimic him throwing paper balls in trash cans.
I'm not going to be able to say. I've been saying that since I was in like the 7th grade. Watching Kobe, you ball up your last night's assignment, you throw Kobe, or you throw up a half-court shot before gym class, and you yell Kobe. He just, without us really knowing it, he became such an integral part of our pop culture, and like how we relate to athletes and celebrities as a whole.
And I was listening to Philly Sports Radio a lot. Obviously, he was from Lower Merion, which is right outside the city, and one of the morning hosts, Mark Farzetta, he hit it right on the head. When David Stern was commissioner, David Stern wanted to globalize the NBA, and it seemed like he turned to a player like Kobe to make that possible. And when you look at obviously what's happened, like AC Milan was his favorite team. He lived in Italy for a couple of years or whatever. AC Milan was his favorite team. They went over, they had a tribute for him. Then I heard China had like blog tributes, and then you go down to like the Australian Open. There's tennis players that have the number 8 carved in their shirt or whatever it was. It's like and then that court painting on at the Philippines.
Yes.
Did you see it? That was incredible, and it just goes to show how much of a reach he had. And like David Stern set out to do this, and he put it pretty much on Kobe, and Kobe made it happen. So like David Stern, while they're both passed on now, David Stern owes him a big thank you, because you saw the effects all around the world of what Kobe left. With
he was
everybody.
Just a global ambassador of the game. And not only that, but by all accounts, he was the type of person that you could approach and speak with, and he would give you the time of day and actually listen to what you had to say. He was, and this goes to speak for the intelligence that he had, but he was at least trilingual. I know he obviously spoke English, Spanish, and Italian. I believe he had claimed that he knew
Portuguese.
I think Portuguese, German, and Mandarin are all rumored, but nonetheless, so that helped him connect with people overseas, because obviously when someone shows an effort to learn another language, that's showing respect for other cultures. And
I forget what player it was. They said that he learned a couple words in their language just so he could harass them on the court. I can't remember who it was. I do remember reading that. I mean, you woke up and you're like, this can't be real. You still wake up every day and you're like, all right, well, today I'll be fine. Like today is like the day I'll be, I won't think about it as much. And then you scroll up at Twitter and you see another story and you're like, here we go again. It's just like,
it just still doesn't feel real.
Right. And it, like you said, for a person that I've never met, you've never met, millions of people never met, they're going to be like that. It's a grieving process for a lot of people that you probably wouldn't really expect when, like you said, another celebrity dies. Or I don't think that like a player like him is going to resonate with so many people like ever again. I don't know. You know?
And it was interesting because I was talking to my dad about this actually, and he was able to empathize with me a little bit because he understood that Kobe is one of the icons, especially in sports, of our generation. obviously not my dad and mine, yours and mine.
Yeah.
But he kind of related it to when John Lennon was shot. And he wasn't really a music fan when Lennon first started with the Beatles, but obviously as he gained notoriety, came overseas, and then he was an icon even post-Beatles. My dad being born in 1961, he remembers being in shock that John Lennon, who was the age, was he 41, I think, as well?
I don't know off the top of my head,
I think he was 41 as well, but shot and killed in New York City, and how the world just seemed to stop and forget about all of its problems for a moment, and everyone put aside their differences, and they all felt the same thing, and that was sadness for a person whose presence on this planet honestly was a benefit to so many people.
That's what happened with, like, times are, I mean, we all know the divide ain't anymore between two people, and this is like the closest we've seen everyone, our society, whether it's on social media, whether it's at work, whether it's, you know, just out at the gym, whatever it was. You talk, like, anybody's like, hey, you know, Kobe, like, that's so sad, and you just sit there and you resonate and you talk a couple stories. Like, we just haven't been this close together in some time. And,
and it just speaks to the volumes of which sports can transcend all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I know on the surface it all is just a game, and some people say it's a bunch of millionaires just playing with the ball. What does it really matter? But this is how it matters, because it does connect us, and it does give us something to share as human beings. And if anything, if we can take anything from this tragedy, I think it's that we all do have the ability to come together and not only appreciate someone like Kobe Bryant, but appreciate each other for feeling the way that we do and being human beings. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't know. It's just it's still wild. Like, I thought, like, 4 days afterwards, I'd kind of be able to put words together, talk about it, and it's still a struggle.
And
man.
I've listened to, and I know for a lot of people listening, we may not be providing the most insightful look at this. Like we said, it's not like we've ever met Kobe. There's been people all over who have had personal interactions with Kobe Bryant, and their stories are beautiful. But we're just fans of the sport, and I think that this is a perspective that a lot of other people listening can empathize with, because even though we didn't know the guy, even though we aren't connected to a sports team or that industry, it is still all right to feel something for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people shouldn't have to act tough, like, oh, it's just a basketball player. Like, no, that's not how this works. Like, and when I see people say, like, how can you be so sad over a basketball player? I'm like, you don't understand. Like you said, we were just getting into our peak sports watching and sports understanding at our age.
Yeah.
When he was in his prime, you know, you had him and Shaq, and then, I mean, MJ was there.
Yeah,
AI
I only really remember
there.
MJ in a Wizards jersey.
Yeah, so I a couple years, you know, but like Kobe was basically the start of the misery for me in that first half of the 2000s as a Philadelphia fan.
Yes.
Watching the Sixers get smoked by him and Shaq, and then, you know, we know what happened with the Eagles with the 4 or 5 years, and I know, like, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say hate towards Kobe after he made those remarks to Philadelphia fans during the finals, saying, I'm here to rip your throats out or your hearts out. But whatever was there between the two fans, or between him and the fans, it all pretty much cleaned up after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Because you see that video that Vanessa Bryant posted of him celebrating the Super Bowl and him just talking to the Eagles and all that. Like, fans are like, okay, you know what? That was 20, 21 years ago. We're good now, you know. It's just like it's wild, like the roller coaster that we were just on with him in general as a Philly, because like he was Philly, like he's Philly, the grit, the work, and that's, as a Philly fan, that's exactly what we would have wanted our player to say to the opposing team. Like, I'm coming here, I'm gonna rip your heart out. Like, that's what we wanted, and that's what he did to us. And it's like, damn, I'm really mad at him, but that's it. You know what I mean? That's what it is.
Yeah, man, just such a pleasure to watch. And I kind of want to transition now, and instead of we've been, excuse me, been a little heartfelt here. But this really is a time where we should try to look back on Kobe in fondness. And I know there are people who will bring up some bumps that he hit in the road, and I'm not ignoring those. I by no means am saying that Kobe was a perfect human being. Who amongst us was.
Right.
But he seemed like he was able to get stuff together, especially later in his career. But nonetheless, just a couple things to talk about. I want to know if you kind of have a favorite era of Kobe. Like, was it the classic Kobe and Shaq, or were you drawn more towards him in his later years, the number 24 alongside Powell when he won those last two?
I think I was more resonated toward the Kobe and Shaq because you said it was in our prime years of watching him. Like, that's when we first got into sports, and they just dominated the game. Like, they would have put a Golden State Warrior dynasty to shame if Shaq didn't get moved. I'm almost guaranteeing that. I mean, they had 3 straight as it was, and then Shaq got shipped off. They probably could have won another 3 or 4 straight, I think, with the way I mean, it was just scary, and it was fun. I mean, people say Golden State was fun to watch. I mean, you just can't beat it. Like, it was just insane. Like, that oop from him to Shaq in Game
Portland
7
game
against Portland in the Western Conference Finals. And you're like, whoo, baby. Like, so much fun. But, yeah, that was the era. I mean, listen, he killed it in the back half of his career, too. I mean, you look at, I'm sure you have a couple things about, like, the MSG game, the Raptors game, and a couple months before the Raptors game, he had the 62 in, 34 minutes against Dallas. I mean, it's some of the stuff he did, huh?
Yeah, man, an incredible career and 2 great acts for it. And I get where you're coming from with the Kobe and Shaq. Like, that was just dominant. But I personally enjoyed the post-Shaq Kobe because, number one, it was the bounce-back story. Because when Shaq left, Shaq won in Miami, and Kobe struggled, I think, missed the playoffs 2 straight years after that.
Right.
Anyway, he changed his number to 24. That's Michael Jordan +1, motivating himself, just like Kobe does, as if he needed any extra motivation other than to be the greatest of all time. But he got to be Kobe then. He wasn't the 1B to Shaq, because Shaq was the better player on those teams. And he got to really show us that killer mentality, man. So that's when he had the 81, the 4 straight 50-point games. That's when he became the Mamba. And I know it wasn't quite as exciting of a basketball team, but there was just something about it where it's like you could tell he had matured as a player, as a person, and he just seemed even more focused because now he had to prove L.A., who probably would have preferred to keep Shaq at the time, he had to prove to them that they made the right decision, that he was the best player in the league. So I really loved that version of Kobe.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong. What player has 2 numbers retired?
Yeah, do you know, is the NBA going to?
I'm pretty sure the players are pretty much doing it themselves, but I don't know if the NBA will take an official stance.
Do you think they should?
I don't know. He would probably be the first player in all of sports, right? Maybe so. Is the 99 retired in hockey?
I don't know that.
See, I don't know. James, do you know?
Yeah.
I think 99 might, but outside of that, like...
Yeah, I get that it's unprecedented, but this event has been unprecedented. Like, I forget exactly where I heard this stat, so I apologize for not crediting it correctly, but only 2 MVPs of the NBA have died. Wilt Chamberlain and Moses Malone.
Really?
Those are the only 2 NBA MVPs that have passed away, and both of them were in their 60s. I believe Moses Malone was 60, and neither of them lived the type of, like, clean, healthy physical life that a guy like Kobe Bryant did. They died of natural or self-inflicted causes, however you want to put it. But
that's interesting. 99's retired.
Okay, so he would be alongside of Gretzky, and I'm not sure about all sports.
Yeah.
But I honestly think they should, and I'm of the mindset, and I know recency bias, we're all still emotional.
Yeah.
But I think they should consider changing the logo.
Yeah. The only thing I look at is it's almost like you're kind of, well, they keep saying it's not Jerry West as a logo anyway, but we all know it is.
It's Jerry West.
But he doesn't get royalties for it, so that's how they get their way. But you're almost penalizing a person like that. And I get it, like, eventually they're going to have to switch some things around. Like, you can't just keep honoring the same person years and years and years, even though when there's someone like Kobe that comes by, like an MJ, like a LeBron, like a whoever, you know what I mean? Eventually you're going to have to recognize these players somehow, whether it's a logo, whether it's the MVP award, whether it's the finals MVP, whatever it is. Like, some of these new players are going to have to start taking a role. And if they don't retire his numbers, he should definitely be the logo. I think it should be one or the other.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I don't think it should be both. And it's nothing against him or not. You know, I just think like you said, it's circumstances are. But yeah, to me, it's one or the other. And I think it has to be one or the other. I am completely okay with one or the other.
Yeah, I think that there should be something done to pay respects to someone who did so much for this league, both domestically and abroad. And he was part of the biggest brand in basketball, one of the 2 or 3 biggest brands in sports. So,
before we go too far,
yeah, I
don't know if we're going to talk about Kobe moments, are we? Do we have a couple more?
Oh,
Kobe
yeah, we've
moments?
got some time for Kobe. Let's go Kobe moments. Yeah, we got time, man.
One of the first ones that popped up to me was him not flinching on the inbounds.
Oh my God, who was that again? I forget the player.
I forget.
Yeah, it was against the Nets, but yeah, inches away from his face, just not flinching.
Stone cold face, not giving a shit. And then, I mean, one of the more moments of him just showing how tough he was, how just wanted to play the game, is when he went and shot those 2 free throws after tearing his Achilles.
It's my all-time favorite Kobe moment. I remember watching that game live, and I remember just you could tell that he was in pain, but his face stayed stone cold.
Yeah.
And then he limps off the court, barely lifting his foot off the ground, just kind of flat. And it's just a testament to, like you said, how dedicated he was to the game and winning and just leaving it all out on the court. Another
one of the funny ones was, he was after post-Shaq, there were some pretty bad Laker teams there.
Oh, yeah, with Kwame Brown.
They got blown out by Portland, I think it was, and he took all their Kobe shoes away from them because he called them all soft and stuff. He's like, you can't wear my shoes, you're soft.
And, man, he demanded a lot of the people around him.
He did. Yeah, that was the great thing about him. I mean, that's...
Yeah, so what do you think overall his legacy will be?
Wow. Oh, man. I think he'll be a player that left it all. He just left everything on the court. When you look at the Achilles, when you look at the 81, the 60 in his last game as a player, the man just never let up. He was just always working. And I just think when you look at the fiery competitiveness in him, it was like second to none. And his work ethic was second to none. And I don't know if that really describes his legacy, but that's how I'm going to look back on him as.
No, it's pretty similar for me, but to put it into words, I would say his tenacity in pursuit of greatness, because that's what it was. He identified pretty early on that he knew he wanted to be great. And what he did before games, in his workouts, in his studying, in taking care of his body by paying attention to what he was eating, to practice where he would push himself harder than the rookies that were trying to make the team. And he pushed other people to be great and expected nothing but their best every single day. And then on the court, the pure fire and passion that he brought defensively, offensively, with his shit talking. This is a guy who, up until his last day, would have told you that he would have kicked Michael Jordan's ass in one-on-one.
He was enemies with everybody on the court.
If you were on the other team on the basketball court, it was over because you were in his way to the top of the mountain. And like I said, he got about as close to that as you could, with 5 rings with 2 different dynasties and all those all-stars and first team All-NBA and
defense and all around. I mean,
he didn't half-ass anything.
No.
And that's a great thing to be remembered by.
Yeah, for sure. It is a shame, and you
sad.
Kind of hope the Lakers kind of respond well and
It was wild. The first time since the Boston Marathon massacre that there was NBA games canceled. They canceled the Lakers-Clippers game.
Moved it.
So.
Crazy. That's crazy. And, I mean, I know a lot of people, like, the whole Sunday thing, when it happened, people were, him or hollering what to do with the games on Sunday. And I do think, like, having them play was the right decision. I know it's tough to ask those players to go through that, but the mentality that he had is, he would have wanted them to play and, like, toughen up.
Absolutely. And I love the kind of tributes that they did with the 8-second and 24-second shot clock violations. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Great show of support and love for both Kobe and his family. Really?
2K online, people were doing that.
Kobe Bryant, your life has and continues to resonate with so many of us, and we thank you for what you were able to contribute to the sport of basketball, as well as sports fans and the general population of this planet as a whole. And once again, we send our thoughts and condolences to not just the Bryant family, but all of those who were involved or touched by this devastating accident. But with that, we are going to take a little break here. Believe it or not, there is a Super Bowl coming up this weekend, and
quite a big game.
It's wild that we do one show a week and the Super Bowl is this weekend, and we couldn't lead with it, and it's because Kobe Bryant meant that much to all of us. So anyway, guys, we will be back with you shortly to continue our show, so stick tight, and the Practice Squad podcast will be back with you soon.